Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give Kal Halal, that's all praises, infinite honors, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rekakodash, the water for giving us the elders and apostles, a great millstone who rule and teach well, being worthy of double honors. Salutations and respect to the hopeful elect, you Akim, pushing this word in truth and sincerity across the four winds of the earth. Shalom to the believers. It's your brother Karaitazar from GMS, Mississippi Gulf Coast, House of Judah, coming back with another Lord willing Adawan Ratazar edifying just quick little lesson on an article that I found. I'm gonna leave the link to it in the description box, but I did a lesson on I haven't even titled it yet, but it's pretty much on the border conditions with the migrants from Mexico, and about their living conditions. And I'm gonna read this article further expounding on it. I'm not gonna get no precepts unless the spirit is on me, but it's a little lengthy, but I ain't gonna make it too long. But Lord willing, it be edifying. It says from June 17th to June 19th, 2019, I was part of a team of lawyers, doctors, and interpreters monitoring conditions for children in Border Patrol stations in the El Paso, Texas area on behalf of the class of children protected by Flores Settlement Agreement. Hold on, so like 1 second. Alright. It says on June 17th and 19, I interviewed children detained on the Clint Border Patrol Station, and on June 18th, I interviewed children and their families at the El Paso Station and the Santa Teresa Border Patrol Station. I personally interviewed 16 detained children in these three facilities while our monitoring team interviewed over 50 children throughout our visit. All right. It says inhumane conditions at the border. It says our in-depth interviews with children revealed that the U.S. Border Patrol is holding many children, including some who are much too young to take care of themselves, in jail-like border facilities for weeks at a time, without contact with family members or regular access to showers, clean clothes, toothbrushes, or proper beds. Many were sick. Many, including children as young as 2 or 3, were separated from adult caretakers without any provisions for their care besides that provided by unrelated older children also being held in detention, as it's going to continue to expound on. It says these conditions are consistent with those Human Rights Watch documented in our February 2018 report, In the Freezer. In contrast with the conditions as of February 2018, the harms of CBP detention for children are now compounding over weeks instead of days. Lack of adult caregivers. It says, on my first day at Clint, I spoke with an 11-year-old boy who was caring for his 3-year-old brother. Both were fending for themselves in cinder blocks cells with dozens of other children for 3 weeks. When I met them, the little one was quiet with matted hair, a hacking cough, muddy pants, and eyes that fluttered closed with fatigue. As we spoke, he fell asleep on 2 office chairs drawn together. I am the one who takes care of him here, the older brother told us. There was a teenage girl with curly hair who was helping me take care of him for a while. I don't know her name, but she's gone now. Now no one helps me take care of him. It says a 14-year-old told our team she was taking care of a 4-year-old girl who had been placed in her cell with no relatives. I take her to the bathroom, give her my extra food if she is hungry, and tell people to leave her alone if they're bothering her. She said, She has been sick the whole time I have been taking care of her and is coughing and has mucus. She doesn't talk hardly at all, just yes and no. She wears diapers and I change them for her. An 11-year-old boy detained with his 9-year-old brother and 7-year-old sister told us nobody takes care of us here. I try to take care of my little brother and sister since no one will take care of them. There are little kids here who have no one to take care of them, even not even a big brother or sister. Some kids are only 2 or 3 years old and they have no one to take care of them. It says hygiene and health. It says the children I met with at Clint were visibly dirty, mucus, or mud stained, and nearly all wearing the same clothes they wore when they crossed the border. They told us they were not given regular access to soap or toothbrushes and were given access to showers only once or twice in a period of weeks, if at all. When they were given access to showers, they told us they were limited to mere 3 minutes. It says upon our arrival at Clint, Customs and Border Protection Attorney Lisa Donaldson provided us with a list of children currently detained there. On June 17th, there were 351 children on the roster from under a year old to age 17. Under a year old. It says we requested to see children from the list successively. In several cases, agents told us they could not bring the children we requested to the interview rooms because they were in quarantine. It says we requested access to the children in the quarantine cells and were denied. On June 18th, CBP facilitated a telephone interview of three older children in quarantine. Though we were unable to verify whether these interviews occurred out of the earshots of guards, we also spoke with children who had been held for some period of time in quarantine cells. It says, this is a girl, 14-year-old girl in a quarantine cell. She said, I was in the first cell for 7 days sleeping with no mattress. It is hard to sleep when you have no mattress. I then came down with the flu. I then went into the flu cells for 7 days. When you are in the flu cell, you also sleep on the floor, but you have a mattress. There were 21 other kids in that space with the flu. I had a fever in there and I was shaking. Some of the other kids were vomiting. They all had fevers. No one was taking care of the kids with the flu. We were not allowed to leave the flu cell ever. It was very boring. I did nothing to entertain myself, nor was anything offered. It was sad, very sad. I felt locked up and closed in. This is an 11-year-old boy held in CBP custody for 12 days, despite having parents in New Jersey. He said, about 3 days ago I got a fever. They moved me alone to a flu cell. There is no one to take care of you there. They just give you pills twice a day. I am having an allergic reaction all over my skin. My skin is itchy and red and my nose is stuffed up. 2 times they gave me a pill for it, but not anymore. Yeah, it says U.S. law. This says lengths of stay, inadequate efforts to release and reunite children. It says U.S. law prohibits holding children in Border Patrol custody for more than 72 hours in typical circumstances. And yet the children we met in Clint told us they had been there for weeks. Sometimes when we ask, we are told we will be here for months, said one 14-year-old girl who said she'd been there for 3 weeks. It said many of the children with whom I spoke said they had parents or close relatives in the U.S. It says they tried to interview a 7-year-old girl and they asked them who, where, who they asked her who she came there with, who she traveled to the U.S. with, and she said her aunt. She started crying, and they couldn't even interview her because she was crying so much. It says, I want to read this last part and I'm going to close it out. It says, separations from family members. Many of the children held at Clint said that they were separated from family members and sometimes their primary caregivers at the border. they were separated at the border from their parents and caregivers. It says, in clear contradiction of their best interests. This is the regular practice of U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Not only do such separations render children unaccompanied and expose them to prolonged detention, they wreak psychological harm comparable to separation from a parent. All right, this is the last part that I want to read. I might read this last one, but that's pretty lengthy. But you can get the point out of this one. It says, an inconsolable 14-year-old boy I met at the Homestead Detention Center in late March summed up the impact of these kinds of separations. He had traveled from Guatemala with his 29-year-old sister and her son. She's my oldest sibling in Guatemala and has always been there for me, he said. She's like my mother. Sometimes I call her mom because she's taken care of me my whole life. When they crossed the border into Texas and turned themselves into the Border Patrol, they were detained in different cages. On the third day, they took me out of my cage and said I would be separated from my sister, but they didn't tell me where I was going. I don't understand why they separated us. They didn't give me a chance to say goodbye. Um, and it said that they Okay, I'm gonna just this I got to read this last one. It says, under US law and international human rights law, the best interest of the child should govern the state's actions toward children. Separating families, which is not required by US law or regulation, will normally not be in the best interest of the child. The Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act, TVPRA, in 2008, and the Homeland Security Act, VEST CPB, with the authority to make an initial determination of whether a child is unaccompanied, defined as a child who has no lawful immigration status in the U.S., has not attained 18 years of age, has no parent or legal guardian in the U.S. able to provide care. Although many of the children we met at Clint said they had parents inside the U.S., current practice by the Department of Homeland Security classifies children as unaccompanied if neither a parent or legal guardian with a court order to that effect is with the child at the time of apprehension or within a geographical proximity to care for the child. Um, but it goes on to say, these children had caregivers before they crossed the border, and then they separated them at the border, and then they tried to classify them as unaccompanied children. So therefore, they sent the caregivers and the parents, the caregivers, whoever was with them at the border, they sent them back to Mexico to await, or wherever in South America that they came from, to await their court dates, their migrant, whatever the word is, court date, to try to get into the U.S. And they sent the parents back there to wait for their court date, and they held the children at the detention centers. And it said they can't even get in contact with their children because most of them parents, they didn't even got phones down there because they poor. But that's all I wanted to touch on. You could read the rest of it yourself. Out of one, Ratazah, Lord willing, it was edifying. To the next time, I want to say shalom.